under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, approval of the regular agenda. I would take a motion to approve the agenda as proposed.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
there's been a motion by Rick, seconded by Sean. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. The next item is the consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I too have a question, and it is the Fund 421. There was a payment to the Mayo Clinic Health Systems for $11,125. I'm not sure what that payment is for, and I was just kind of curious.
Yeah, it was part of the 2022 CIP project, how we straightened out that road. We had to buy some of their property. And with that agreement, we also agreed to pay for them to move their landscaping.
Oh,
So
okay,
that's what that
great, yeah,
dollar amount's
thanks,
for.
okay, yep, that makes sense, thank you.
Any other questions? I would take a motion to approve them.
So moved?
There's been a motion by Maggie, seconded by Bruce. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next item is city engineer projects update.
Hi, everybody. Looks like there's my camera.
There you go.
I've got my project updates for you. I want to go through all these, so I guess I'll just ask if there are any questions on there. And if not, I'll just kind of move straight into my next item. With the 2023 street project wrapping up here, we are now at the assessment stage of the project. What I have for you today is a copy of the typical assessment notice that would go out to properties on the project, the draft assessment roll, and also the resolution that council will need to pass, which would be to order the assessment hearing, which would be held at the second meeting in October.
Okay.
So what you would need to do with that resolution is also establish the period of time for payback, which is typically 15 years, and then also confirm the interest rate that would be set. And I don't know if that's something that Josh or Robin have comment on as far as what that percent is, or if that's included into your resolution now. Typically it's 1 to 2% over your market rate, which I think was 3.47% on your bond.
Yes, I believe in the past the city's generally done 1% over the top of the rate.
Okay.
We have,
So,
or do you know that for a fact? Okay.
Yeah, we have. What was the rate? I can't remember. Or did they say it and I didn't hear it?
I think Chris said 3.47.
Oh, 3.47. Okay, thanks.
So you'd be 4.47%. Certainly higher than previous years, but that's just the way everything is on interest rates now. So I don't know if there are any questions on that resolution. It's pretty much our boilerplate that we've done in the last few projects. We do have the assessment roll. What we would do after you pass the resolution is we would finalize our assessment roll, do one more review on it, make sure we have everything 100% accurate. The biggest thing is making sure that the assessment quantities are what we expected them to be, which to my knowledge they are. We would have that assessment hearing, as I mentioned, at the second meeting in October if this does proceed.
Chris, I got a question for you. I had heard from a homeowner that's affected by this project, had underground sprinkler system in their yard for 20 some years. And then of course the streets were widened and sidewalks added, and it took a substantial chunk of I think he said like 9 feet, if that sounds about right, but, have we ever, as a city, I mean, I don't know if this has affected other people, but it just seems to me the cost of, if we had to redo those lines or whatever, it doesn't seem like that would add a whole lot to the system. I mean, they're already being, or to the project, they're already being, assessed for the project itself, and now they get this added bill on top of it. I understand the right of way a little bit, but have you ever heard of cities taking care of instances like
Yeah.
that?
So as far as other communities, it certainly is a choice by project. I have worked in some committees, some cities that have had it repaired as an incidental item, and the contractor, if they hit a sprinkler system, they had to repair it. The problem you run into is that so many of these sprinkler systems are continuous through there, so it wouldn't be necessarily repairing a sprinkler system. It'd probably be relocating and constructing a new line in a lot of areas, especially with the amount of sidewalk being added to the project. There always is a cost. It's hard for me to quantify that. So if we had them all located, knew exactly where they were, we could probably put them into a bid. But to my knowledge, this has never been paid for by the city of New Prague. And it does get kind of complicated. The city does have a permit form. I understand that if people install sprinkler systems within the right of way, they're supposed to get it permitted. And I'm guessing that Ken can count those on one hand how many those are actually permitted. But it's kind of a tough precedent to at this point start allowing it to be included with the project and repaired with the project when it hasn't been on so many in the past.
Yeah, and I don't know how many other, neighbors or taxpayers were affected by that over the last, 13 years that I've been on the council, but this was the first time I had heard about it, and that's why I was inquiring about it. I was just a little, it didn't seem right if we were tearing up, it's just an added expense to the taxpayer that and I really don't think it would have added a whole lot to the project. I'm not sure how many people, like I said, were affected, but this was new to me, and I just wanted to kind of get the council's feeling on where we should perhaps look next time, or when we start redoing streets, if, people are adversely affected. And it might even go for as far as, trees that might be in the right of way that have to be taken down. I don't know if the contractor does that to put those in, and then maybe the city could replant another one in place of the one that we're taking out, but just some food for thought. I guess I'd like to hear what the council thinks on it too, but.
I'm in the same category as you on that one.
So,
But the sprinkler systems, I used to install them. There is a plan to every one of them sprinkler systems. If you know you're getting your street repaired, I suggest you submit them to the city so we don't run into their sprinklers.
and I do know the city, I mean, we work to try, especially when you tell us that they're not there. It does become a slippery slope, because when people contact us, we tell them not to put stuff generally in the right of way. If you have plantings, flowers, trees, sprinkler systems, and you'll see some sprinkler systems around town where people have basically set them back and they spray out. But I mean, I didn't even know around my neighborhood, a number of them are right up next to the curb.
Right.
And it's technically city right of way. And I've spoken to some of my neighbors about it, and they know that it's there, and that if we come through, that they just figure they're going to get damaged. But there are some people that are, no, why put that? Like, I mean, it becomes a tricky slope, because the more, if you start saying you're going to replace things that get put into the right of way, people will start putting more stuff into the right of way, and then just calling on the city to replace it.
Right. Well, and I see your point. I guess though that, something that's been there for 20 plus years, and then all of a sudden we come in and we widen the street and add sidewalks. And I know that can always be there, but what I find a little hypocritical is that we just gave Mayo Health System $11,000 to redo their landscaping essentially when we redid the
Well,
street.
that's where we basically bought land from them, and I mean, they didn't have to sell to us.
No, was that a cost of the land or the cost to because I heard both.
It was basically during the negotiations that we'll agree to sell this to you if you'll relocate our landscaping for us.
Right, and
It
now
was
we're,
for a landscape, or it was for their Mayo sign that was in the corner.
yeah,
It was for a concrete base. It was for the electric to get moved to that spot, and then we also took their big like sitting area down. It had nothing to do with their sprinkler system.
Okay.
They had the same thing that every resident deals with is they had to move their sprinkler system too because they put it in the road right away. And
Okay.
they are told right away if you put it in the road right away, the city is not liable if anything ever happens to that because it's not supposed to be there.
right,
So just like every resident, we tell the same thing too. So
I just wanted to add, it is in, city code, actually, our, next item, an introduction to an ordinance, the very end of that, which we're not planning to change, we do have a right-of-way encroachment permit, and we do specifically call out sprinkler systems are allowed with an approved, lawn sprinkler permit, and that was adopted in 2007.
okay,
And it basically says also in there, if unlawfully installed, it is subject to removal, by the city at the owner's expense. So there may be ones older than that, but, we did not have this provision in there prior to '07, when this was adopted.
okay. Well, again, excuse me, this was the first I had heard about it on all the projects that I've been on, but, I was just kinda curious of how many other homeowners might have been affected with it or will be affected, as we continue the street project. And I really don't think if the city were to go in there or have a contractor go into, let's say, 10% of the houses that we're doing, that might have sprinklers, it really doesn't add a whole lot to the project just to, but it is several $1,000s for the individual homeowner on top of getting assessed, for the project itself. So, I don't know, I just want to bring it up. I told them I'd try to get an answer now that there's an ordinance since 2007 on the books. I was just kind of curious on where the council's feeling is on that too, if moving forward, we should look at replanting trees that we tear down or, fixing or redoing the lines to, the underground sprinkler systems. I can't even think of anything else other than maybe some landscaping and,
I'd add to it,
other
but you
bushes
said
and stuff
exactly what I
around
was
that.
saying. Especially the trees. I mean, if we take a tree out, we could replace that. I mean, don't we have a stockpile of them?
We're a tree city now.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't know, it would be good discussion. I don't know what your
I
feelings
talked
are on
to,
it.
we took so many down and I got hit a lot about, will the city help? And I talked to Josh about it, and then we can control, well, I don't wanna say control, that's a bad word. We can help the homeowner with replacement trees that aren't gonna be susceptible to diseases,
Yep, I agree.
I mean, there's gonna be a lot more coming down. And,
So, I mean, I think that's certainly possible. Of note, we do have a stockpile, but it's not vast by
It's
any
not
means.
mature.
It's more for us.
Yeah.
And so we would have to essentially taking more care of more trees, whether that means more staff time or whatnot, it would take to water and keep those trees ready to go. So, I mean, I think things like that are possible, but you're certainly, again, delving
Yep.
into an added cost on the city side, not only just for planting, but for keeping track of those trees before they leave our possession.
Yeah, and I don't know, what a young tree costs anymore. It's been 20 years since I've had to plant them myself, but, just, I don't think we can do anything in this situation, especially considering we have 90% of our street projects done over the last 15 years, but, I was just kinda curious if that's something moving forward, if it's gonna affect the homeowners that
We can
the
certainly
council
have
can
a
certainly look to
conversation.
help them out with a sprinkler system or trees or any landscaping that they've put in and nurtured and then is, ripped out because we widen the street and add sidewalks to it, so, which I'm for adding sidewalks, but, anyways, I told them I'd bring it up and wanted to see if I could get an answer. I think I have the answer that I needed.
Okay.
But maybe as a council, we move forward on these street projects like this one that and I don't know what it is, is it 5 homeowners, and 10 trees, or is it
Probably just about
100 trees and it's gonna add $100,000 to the thing? that's.
Yeah, I mean, some streets will, and especially as we've been going through with putting a sidewalk on a single side of the street, we've tried to be very strategic in how we do that to minimize impacts to trees and whatnot. If we ever go to a system where we start adding them on both sides of the street, I think cost is obviously gonna significantly go up. And then in terms of the sprinklers, I think it's just about, not all of them, but just about every single sprinkler set I've seen is probably illegally placed because people don't want to water all of their grass but leave the boulevard unwatered kind of
Right.
situation.
Is that when the home is built and the builder is supposed to secure that, or is that just like a side? I know that some
I
people do
guess-
it after the fact, but,
Yeah, I mean, I think more of them are probably done when they're built, but I mean, I don't have a sprinkler system and I've looked into it, and I guess that'd be something that I would ask the contractor then to get the permit for.
okay.
Yeah, so with the permit, we do require a location map of all the lines and the heads, and we keep that in the address file. Again, for situations like this, so that's why we require the permit, so if we run into a right-of-way encroachment, we know where they're at.
Okay.
But again, that's if they have the permit on file. Prior to '07, they should not have anything in that right-of-way.
Okay, okay,
We can tell you about the history of that.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Chris, do you have anything else?
Nope, just the resolution would be the big one. So that would need to be passed, and that would have to determine both the term, the 15-year term, I assume, and also the interest rate. And then once that is passed, we would proceed with sending out all the notices to residents on the project.
All right. So what was that rate again? I'm sorry.
Sure.
4.37.
4.37? Okay.
3.47 was the bond rate, and that's 1%. Yes, so 4.47.
447, okay. All right. So I'll offer the resolution number 23-09-18-01, adopting and ordering the preparation of the proposed assessment and calling for the hearing of the proposed assessment.
Second.
And Rick seconds it, and I will also put in that resolution with an interest rate of 4.47. Okay. All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Thanks, Chris.
Right. Thank you. Right.
Okay, next on the agenda is the public's invited to be heard on matters not on the agenda. Is there anybody that wants to be, the council to be heard? There's nobody in the gallery? Patrick? I'm good. Okay. So then we'll move on to number 8, ordinances for introduction.
All right, if you're ready for the introduction of ordinance number 342, right-of-way ordinance, and amendments for small wireless facilities, I can get into that.
Yes, would you please?
All right, so we've actually been talking about amendments to this right-of-way ordinance dating back to 2017. In the packet here, I did include some information on the statute that Kennedy and Graven and City Attorney Scott Riggs and the league had put together regarding, back in 2017, some changes to the right-of-way ordinance that they suggested due to small cell infrastructure. And this was, if you remember at the time, cell companies were looking at putting up infrastructure on light poles. It could have been anything more at the, they called it like the human level, not on, water towers and not on giant structures, but again, down at the street level to get coverage in areas for 5G and above where they maybe wouldn't be reached in a downtown area or other areas with heavy building cover. We started writing the right-of-way ordinance amendment and found quickly that we were using a very outdated version in general of our right-of-way ordinance. Don't know exactly how old it was, but it was definitely from at least 20-plus years prior. So Scott Riggs immediately said, hey, there's a new model of the ordinance from the league. Let's take a look at that and take your right-of-way ordinance and update provisions where statute had changed, not just for the small cell technology, but in every facet that we could think of. So with that, we also had a deadline throughout the review process that started back in 2017 of actually looking at an FCC order that occurred back in 2019. And those of you there on the council at the time may recall, we adopted a small cell wireless facility design guidelines policy, which we had to get done by a April 15th, 2019 deadline. So I did include that in the packet just to remind the council of what was adopted at that time, but it included some placement and screening requirements and other design requirements for the small cell items. That language and that policy is ultimately reflected in the right-of-way ordinance update that you have in front of you here tonight. But by and large, the whole update ended up being much more about the ordinance itself rather than just the small cell infrastructure that we started with. This had really been put on hold during COVID and just staff getting wrapped up with other projects. But both Matt Rinda and Bruce Reimers also had reviewed this at different times throughout the drafting process. And they have everything in here that they have had issues with our current right-of-way ordinance over time. So we've addressed all of the utility and public works updates that are necessary as well. So in lieu of going through the full many-page document on the right-of-way ordinance, I will stand for questions, or if there is anything you would like to discuss further, we definitely can do that. But by and large, it is using language verbatim from the league current model. We just simply approach the language by amending what we had and addressing the changes by comparing to what the new ordinance provided for. And ultimately, one thing that you'll find in that right-of-way ordinance, like we mentioned briefly, was right-of-way encroachment permits, which are not looking for any amendment on. That's the very end of that ordinance. I just wanted to call that out, and that was adopted back in 2007 timeframe. But again, just updating and modernizing to fit legal parameters and current state law that we needed to update over time.
Maggie, you had something highlighted here, so you're good?
Yeah, so on page 36 in our packet, it is, I think, the section numbering is a little off to me, but it's
36, number
Section-
7A.
yeah, no, I've got it, I had it written down, thank you, Rick. So on page 36 in the packet, it's a small wireless facility agreement, and then it lists some fees.
Yep.
And I'm just wondering if the fees actually need to be in there, or if we can reference some other fee schedule so that in the event they change, we don't have to come back and amend the ordinance.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea, that we could definitely make a change there to refer to fees adopted as amended by the city's official fee schedule or something
Right,
along those
right.
lines. Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Yeah, okay.
Because we're gonna have to adopt fees for all these, because I don't think we have them listed, do we? Like
Correct, we do
tags?
not, I don't believe we have any fees for any of that.
Yeah,
No.
so I suppose that should follow here shortly.
So that we would bring back with if you would like to make that change to reference a fee schedule, then we could then include in our memo, obviously the fees and a resolution to amend the fee schedule.
Yep.
If adopted, and if that's where this moves forward to.
Yeah, that's what I'd like.
Sure.
Do we have any on a city structure currently?
We do not.
Any private?
Well,
I think they just get a right-of-way digging permit, and there's no fee for that. Yes.
no,
But there's no transmission things on any of our buildings or anything like that?
Water
No, I know
tower.
on the water tower, I think Bruce maybe has an agreement or two. I guess I don't know.
I don't know who it's with, but they do have.
Yeah.
Would that,
That's different than just the right-of-way fees that we're talking about. That would be negotiated with that provider for whatever the infrastructure is on that building or
in
city.
that example, would that have to comply with this ordinance then, even though it's utilities doing it?
No, because that's not in the right-of-way. If we're talking like a light pole downtown, then that would come under the guise of this ordinance and any fee in here. But yeah, if you're talking a water tower, or we'll say a city hall, even for that matter, if we had a pole that somebody wanted to put a cell tower or transmitter, whatever it might be, we would be able to negotiate that separately.
And then, just as an example, I know the social media company that was running a line through here, did they provide a financial guarantee in form of bond or any way?
I don't know that. That was with MnDOT's right of way, so we did not permit that.
That was all state.
Nothing was on the city city right away, it was all through Main Street,
Yep.
whole thing? Okay.
So does that contract negotiation for like the water tower go through the utilities committee then?
I would assume, yeah.
Okay. And then do we do any research on what other cities are getting, or do we just take their word for it, or?
Probably have to ask Bruce.
Sorry,
on
I'm
that
being
one.
a little, and I'm sure Bruce did a nice job with it. I'm
I
not trying to.
don't, I'll be real honest, I don't think there's any cell providers. It's
No,
probably
no.
more two-way radio like with the county, and that type of thing on the water towers.
On our water tower is from, the Sewer County had a push to try to get wireless internet into
Oh, okay.
underserved broadband areas. And, I believe that is who was using our tower basically to shoot south in Sewer County. But yeah, so generally, my experience in those processes is, like Kennedy and Graven has quite a bit of experience in that, and they're usually pretty up on the market. Like, you mean going through the various Comcast and Centerpoint, like, yep, I've done 4 of these this year. This is
Excuse
what's
me.
been negotiated.
Thank
We
you.
should be able to got them. So, should they come in, usually someone from Kennedy and Graven is pretty up on what the going rates are to get stuff on your towers.
Okay. All right, that's great. I just noticed some of the fees in here seem kind of odd, like $73 per,
Some are limited actually by statute.
Oh, that's what I
with
was
the updates,
wondering
yeah.
if that was, okay.
So some we may not be able to change, but it probably is best if we just refer to them in a resolution so that if the state even changes their fee, we don't have to amend the code.
Sure.
Because it's kind of a pain in the neck to do that.
Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, I entertain a motion to adopt. Would this be the first?
First reading.
Reading, okay. I'd entertain a motion for the first reading of ordinance number 342.
I'll make
With
a
the
motion,
changes.
yeah, with the changes, yes, on page 36 of the packet, that any fees within this particular ordinance are then referred to the city's fee schedule, as opposed to listing the separate dollar amounts.
I'll second.
Okay, so the motion was made by Baggy, seconded by Sean. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. 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 Opposed, motion carries. The next item up is ordinance number 340, which would be a second reading, correct? Of that ordinance. So I would take a motion for a second reading on ordinance number 340.
So moved.
Bruce made that motion, is there a second? Second. And Rick seconded it, any other discussion on that one?
I will say, just for your guys' information, assuming this passes on second reading, we would then send the ordinance over to Comcast, and they would have 60 days to respond in writing to accept the offer, basically, and then it would become official. So they do have to accept formally our franchise agreement offer.
Okay. That's interesting. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. And then we have the second reading of ordinance number 341, which is amending section 707 of the zoning ordinance titled Screening Relating to Screening Requirements in the I-1 Light Industrial Zoning District. I'll make that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Sean made the second. Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. All right, now we're down to number 10. The first one is adopting 2023 property tax levy for taxes payable in 2024. So this is the preliminary one, right?
Yes, this is our preliminary not to exceed tax levy. So as we've kind of discussed throughout our budgeting process, this is the tax levy basically cap we are setting ourselves at, and so any discussions will only come lower than this. Following our discussions, Resolution 23091802 set in the preliminary levy amount at $5,100,000 and $14,295. Included in there is the memo. I did have a typo. I have got 5115295 in the memo. The resolution and the other documents do have the correct amount in there. Basically, those other documents are, like I said, the resolution setting that for us, and then the proposed tax levy certification form that we need to send to Scott County is in there. That breaks it down a little bit, as well as our debt service schedule certification to the county. So I guess I'll stand for any questions you may have. Otherwise, this should be kind of what we discussed through our budget meetings so far.
So the correct amount is 5114295.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions? Otherwise, I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 23-09-18-02.
I'll second.
And there's a second by Maggie. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. The next item up is the MnDOT Transportation Economic Development Program application. Can you give us a little?
I can give you a little overview on that. Earlier this year, and I think we had in a couple of updates, maybe mentioned in a council meeting, we submitted an interest form to MnDOT for the Transportation and Economic Development Program for a roundabout improvement at the intersection of Turnpike Highway 21 and the intersection at 6th and 7th Street, right in the corner by Chart and Scott Equipment and the Industrial Park. Reason that we brought the project forward, back in 2015 when the EDA platted the current phase of the industrial park, we did have a traffic impact study done at that time. It identified when we had build out of that phase, which is immediately north of 6th Street Northwest, that we had certain improvements that would be needed at that intersection. That would happen as land north of the industrial park develops, but also within the current phase being completed, we had some different turn lanes and other things that they wanted to see done with various changes being made. Now, while we're not looking at, from a city standpoint, at expanding the industrial park any further north at this point, that obviously could change, and there's a private owner up there. We do have identified from back in 2015 that either a signal or a roundabout were the preferred methods to handle the traffic signalization, or the traffic flow there for safety and movement of vehicles and product through the area. And MnDOT obviously has really focused on doing roundabouts for safety improvements and to kind of keep traffic moving. And we'd had a couple of meetings with MnDOT as it relates to this application. They believe that the roundabout, and we had an exhibit in the packet showing conceptually how that could work. There's obviously a lot of design and whatnot that would need to go into it to make sure, in talking with Chart, they have concerns that they can get their truck, that's not the right word, the tank and the movable axles
trolley,
through
yep.
the trailers through the roundabout area without any impediment. So we do have that design element to work into this, but with that, MnDOT felt this was a good project. They are targeting funds that they have available for really directed at improving economic development, obviously our industrial park nearby, and then also ties to school traffic, which we have Raven Stream to the west of that intersection, and a lot of bus traffic actually travels down that way. And then future housing development in the Raven Stream development as well. So they believe it's a good project to apply for. When we put the packet together here last week, we didn't have final estimates for the application that is due on Friday. Ended up being about 2.2 million for the estimated cost, which would mean that our local required 30% match would be about 670,000 for the local match. And with that, we can utilize state aid funds, which again, we are putting towards typically our street projects where we have state aid roads. In talking with Chris Knutson, we may or may not have funds available by the time we would, if awarded this project, we would need to construct it in 2025. But we are also looking at another grant through MnDOT called the Local Roadway Improvement Program, and then the Local Participation Program as helping to fund that local share of the project. So there may or may not be any actual, city, local tax dollars going to this. We'll do our best to make sure we wouldn't. But in the application, we could always make it, and if we, for whatever reason, can't come up with a local match, we can, say, nah, we're not gonna do the project right now and move on. But I think we can find, other non-local dollars to make the project complete and whole as far as budget concerns.
What,
Gonna-
oh, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, is this gonna be one of the big roundabouts where there's landscaping in the middle?
Again, we haven't done any final design, but one of the concerns was Chart was having, a desire to get their big vehicles and trailers around that. MnDOT typically likes to have a visual barrier, so you can't just simply drive right over like the mini roundabout downtown or at Seventh or Columbus for that matter. So I believe that it was slightly larger than the roundabout that you would see out on like Alton Avenue or Chalupski out on Main Street, which Chart is able and has been able to put their large tanks through. So much more in line with what you see there than what we've had built elsewhere in town, which are much too small for that.
It'd be, interesting to watch them try it the first time, because that's gonna be a tough left.
I'm gonna guess that they would drive backwards through it. You basically block it off, so that way they don't have to get around it.
Yeah, they have to
and
block
cut
it
the
off.
corner off.
What, would this be, city-led then? As far as the engineering, or would it be a MnDOT?
Yes, it would be a city-led project, and they would just reimburse for the 70% through the TED program, and then obviously any other local amount. But yeah, it would be city-led, and the reason that is the case is it's not identified in any state traffic improvement plan at this point. But, obviously something we find as locally important, and that's exactly what this program looks to fund. So again, we don't have a final answer on the local match, but we may have state aid funds, or we will certainly be shooting for additional grant dollars to fill that gap. And we have a lot of time to do that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep,
Cool.
it's due on Friday, and we
Yep.
wanna make sure
No,
we
I
get our oar in the
understand.
water, and that's it. This looks like a good project,
Well,
proceed forward.
there's something bad waiting to happen there one of these days.
Yes.
I'll be real honest, and
Yeah.
it's a bad intersection, so. So then you need a resolution for MnDOT.
The resolution, and I would ask that you amend the $600,000 amount in the resolution up to 670. That matches more in line with the application that we'll be making on Friday.
Okay,
I'll make the motion to, approve resolution 23091803 with the addition of the 670,000. Now,
The local match. Yep.
local match, yep.
Second.
There's, Bruce seconded it, and, any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, we're now down to general business. Schedule budget meeting number 2.
Yes, just looking to get on our calendars next time we can get together and talk budgets. We have included the calendars here for the end of September into October for looking at other meetings and that sort of thing. Of reminder, at this meeting, John McNamara from Wold would like to come and also kind of discuss where we're at with the rec study at this point and kind of get your guys' feedback before continuing. So this will be both budget and just kind of a general workshop meeting, so.
September.
yeah. You would think he wouldn't wanna do it that way.
I don't have to be here, but just for a point of information, I'll be out from the 9th through the 20th of October.
Okay.
Did
So you're not,
Did HR approve that?
Have it submitted, I think.
Okay.
or did HR tell you?
I thought I wrote it somewhere.
And I'm gone on October 13th and October 19th and 20th.
Okay. So
What does
this,
October 4th look?
Yeah, that
Wednesday
first-
nights are generally rough for me, but I could make it work if I had to.
Yeah, that first week of October, is fine. You wanna do,
Wednesday?
you wanna do Wednesday or Thursday to help accommodate Josh?
Or Tuesday.
Or Tuesday?
Tuesday'd be better for me.
Or Tuesday?
Okay,
I could do any one of those days right
Yeah.
now.
Tuesday's the
Tuesday
date.
the
Also,
Okay.
Tuesday the 3rd? Okay.
That works.
time?
5 o'clock? Can we start a little bit early? Or is that tough on you, Sean?
No, that's all right. I think we
Okay. So Tuesday at 5, perfect. So then you won't be here on the 16th for the meeting, for the council.
Exactly. yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Assuming HR approves it.
Yeah, assuming. All right, so we got that. Next is miscellaneous. We'll go around the table. Do you wanna start, Maggie? Miscellaneous?
Yeah, I don't really have much. I did get an inquiry from a baseball group that wanted to use the baseball fields at Settlers Park, and the group was just not aware of our policy of having to fill out a form and pay a fee and that sort of thing. So we were able to talk through that, and I know that this individual contacted the city to try to get that passed through. So it's just it was kind of an off-season kind of a league that popped up, and it's youth. So the individual now is more aware of our policies.
Okay. Sean?
I have nothing.
I just wanna thank, the PD, the fire, and the public works publicly because, they worked hard over the weekend. Without their assistance, this big celebration doesn't happen in town, so just wanted to give you guys kudos. Please pass it on, would you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have more of just a curiosity question. I know that there's federal rules guiding the operation of drones, but do we have anything in the city ordinance anywhere dealing with that? And it just occurred to me because I was watching a tennis match and one zoomed across the tennis match at a very high speed. It wasn't a normal recreational
You mean
drone.
here in town?
Yeah, and I thought, wow, that is a fast drone going from one place to another. But I was just curious, do we have anything that regulates any of that around schools and things?
I guess I'm not aware of any.
There are some,
Never mind.
depending upon the size and what it's doing. As far as recording people and things, there's some law enforcement restrictions for our use of them, but for private use, I know some cities have adopted ordinances prohibiting them. I think Shakopee has one, and some of the larger cities have gone to ordinances, what you can and can't do with them. So there are some FCC regulations. What those are, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm familiar with
off the top
those,
of my
the
head.
pilot requirements and
Yeah.
the heights and things like that. I just didn't
That
know
could
if
have
we
been
had
the
anything.
fire department too, Bruce. I mean, they're not that far from there if they were training how to operate them things. Because it sounds like
Oh.
you're describing a very expensive drone.
It wasn't very big, but it was very fast.
Yeah,
Yeah, that could be. Do we have one that's
We have
used
one
quite a
that's-
bit?
yep.
Or probably that's what it was then. That's all I had.
Okay, Rick?
The only thing I got is, Tim, could you check out, there's an RV trailer park behind, the Rusty Spoke? And people have been coming in and out of there like they're living in there, so if you would.
Is it on the property?
Yeah, it's in the back, right by the dumpster.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Okay, Matt?
Nope.
Tim? Yep.
I gave you each a copy, just we've kind of tracked the activity going back to 2014 for the Dozinki weekend, and it's more of just for your information, what we did. If there's any questions about that, I can certainly answer those, but as you can see, second highest we've had for calls and activity since 2014. I would, similar to the mayor, like to thank the PD. They did a fantastic job this weekend. The staff that we have, we are truly fortunate to have them in our community, the group of officers that we have and sergeants and administrative staff. Just hearing some of the things that are going on around us, and I get an opportunity to meet and talk with police chiefs and captains and chief deputies and all kinds of other people, and I'm truly thankful for what we have here.
Anything else?
Do you have any estimates of how many people attend,
Yeah.
or like the parade or
There
the
it is.
Friday night or anything like that? Is it more than other years, or?
I don't, just based upon, I don't have an estimate, but I would say that if I was to guess, I would say numbers are up from what I've seen.
Friday nights seem bigger to me than
Yeah.
other Friday nights.
Yes, and I would say on Saturday, I think there were more people around longer than have been traditionally after the parade. Usually you'll see people will come downtown, grab something to eat and head out. I think people spent a lot more time in our downtown this year than they have in the past, just from what I saw. But a lot of the comments that even the officers that have been around for a while had said that it seemed like there was a larger crowd, and I mean, the weather was beautiful, so that probably helped. And so I would say that it's, if not average, above average for sure.
Did you see that, or did you find that the, kind of the educational thing you did with the people that were in the parade, did that help, or was the parade more orderly than other years? And
Yeah, I think it was a success. Not only from the throwing of the candy and things from the floats, I think that was very well regulated. We didn't have that as an issue. Speaking to the end of the parade, that was kind of our thought process there, is to have more of an exit route for the parade at the end, rather than everybody having to go up
Thank you.
one direction. It got kind of bottlenecked there. So I was actually at the end, and a third went straight and a third turned and a third went the other way, and it just kept things moving down there, and it worked very well. I spoke with Brooke a little bit, and from the setup staging area, it seemed to go fine there. Everything worked out well, I think, and I'll connect with her. They're off this week, but we'll connect next week and discuss if there's, I mean, subtle little things like, maybe this parade unit should be over here and we don't park a tractor on Second Avenue, but just little ancillary things that wouldn't have made or broke anything, so.
Okay, Robin?
Just that the implementation of our new finance, payroll, utility billing system, we just continue to learn and wrap up trainings. So we'll be doing community development at the end of the month here. But staff, I'd say internally, has really been working hard to roll things out. And then staff, I'll call it on the user sides, whether it's department heads entering invoices electronically or staff learning to enter time electronically. I just feel like I've appreciated, there's been a lot of positivity about it from staff working hard, and I know that also comes from the leadership at this table. So it's been a lot of work, but I think it'll be in a good spot when we get there. So just
So
wanted
are
to-
the utility bills gonna look differently?
No, the utility bills should still
Look like
look
they
the
do?
same. We're still using that same interface.
Okay.
It's called Interlight. So that's one of the areas that we've been working on, is just getting the connectivity between our new system and Interlight, and kind of getting some of those intricacies down of what the two systems are sending for data back and forth. Utility billing's been one of our big undertakings, just to get things to look the same for customer interface. So,
Okay,
but that's all.
okay, thanks. Ken?
Nothing.
Josh?
Nope.
Okay, I would take a motion to adjourn the regular meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second, oh, there you go.
Okay, Maggie
for it.
seconded, and all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, and then we have a closed session, it looks like.
You want your laptop unplugged there?
Yeah, you could.